Good morning, everyone. We have a nice big group registered for our meeting today, and we have a core group already on. So thank you for joining us this morning, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Active Transportation Resource Center webinar, Finding the Money, Additional Active Transportation Funding Programs. My name is Marianne Hernandez with the California Department of Public Health Injury Prevention Programs. My colleague, Alicia Ramos and Jeffrey Rosenall, work to support the ATRC, the Active Transportation Resource Center, which provides active transportation technical assistance, resources, and training, of which this webinar is a part. The link to the Active Transportation Resource Center is in the chat, and I encourage you to visit it often as there are new items posted. This webinar, once it's over, will be posted there, so it's a good place to go. And we actually did a funding webinar back in 2021. So there are always new sources of funding. So there are lots of past webinars that might be of interest to you, as well as resources. And I would also like to acknowledge our key team at Caltrans, at local assistants Ali Dewar Westbrook and Michael Hutnick, with whom we work closely. Alicia is running, I want to give her special acknowledgement. She's running the back end. So we'll keep an eye on questions as they come through and answer them as they do. Today, we'll hear from 4 speakers, 3 of which are California grant programs and 1 of which is with the Federal Highway Safety Administration. Our first speaker is Nancy Wolf. She's with the Office of Traffic Safety. Then we have Kevin Marriott with the Caltrans Office of Regional and Community Planning. And then we have Ella Manashil. She's with the Strategic Growth Council. And then we have Mike Shami. He's with the FHWA, Safe Streets and Roads for All. So I'll be introducing them individually right before they speak. Today's webinar is focused on, the objective is focused on letting you know what other programs are out there to support walking and biking. So it's a simple objective. They do it in different ways, which you'll learn straight ahead. We'd like for you to post as we go through the webinar. If you have questions, please post them in the question and answer section of the on your screen. And the chat will be putting links in there, but you shouldn't be posting anything in the chat. And if you have a question you think of later after the speaker has spoken or during, if you wouldn't mind noting who the question is for, the speakers have the ability to answer the questions after they've spoken, of course. So do that. That helps us a lot if you direct the question to the appropriate speaker. Once the webinar is over, a survey will pop up automatically. It should take you about 3 minutes to answer. So we ask that you complete that there and let us know how we did. Thank you. And then finally, we get this question throughout and we'll be posting in the chat. This webinar is being recorded and we also share all the slides, the recording, the slides, as well as a resource document, which we pull out of the slides. You know, many of the slides have links, helpful links, as well as others that we know of. And so that'll be on a resource document sent out to all registrants. So now I think I'm ready for Nancy, and bear with me 1 minute while I get situated here, and I'd like to stop sharing and get that. Sorry. Our first speaker is Nancy. She'll be pulling up our slides first. Nancy Wolf is a traffic safety specialist with the California Office of Traffic Safety. Nancy's areas of focus are pedestrian and bicycle traffic safety and child passenger safety. After working as a grant coordinator in these areas for 6 years, Nancy currently conducts outreach to government and public agencies to increase the reach of Office of Traffic Safety's grant programs. She develops innovative grant-funded countermeasures and convenes with traffic safety stakeholders to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries on California roads. Thank you so much, Nancy. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that you can see the right screen.
Yep,
okay.
It looks great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you, Alicia and Marianne, for having me today. Okay. First, I'd like to provide a bit of background on the Office of Traffic Safety. Like Caltrans, we reside under the California State Transportation Agency, or CalSTA. Oh, hold on. In addition to CalSTA, our sister agencies include CHP, DMV, High Speed Rail, to name a few that may be familiar to you. We distribute federally funded grants funded by the National Highway Traffic Safety Agency, otherwise known as NHTSA. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill, increased NHTSA's budget by more than 50%. In turn, this allowed the Office of Traffic Safety to increase our program to nearly 500 grants in our current grant cycle. You may recognize some of these traffic safety campaigns that you see here on the screen, some of which were created in collaboration with Caltrans. Additionally, you may recognize some of these grant programs that we fund, some of which were also funded by Caltrans. What you see here on the screen, you see Berkeley Safe Treks, CPBST, Complete Streets, Safety Assessments, TIMS, SCAGs, Kit Aparts. These resources that we fund are in turn available to your agencies at no cost. The Complete Streets Safety Assessments Program has recently incorporated a new Safe Speeds pilot intended to bridge the knowledge gaps and provide technical assistance for jurisdictions interested in reducing urban speed in accordance with new California state laws under AB 43, AB 1938, and AB 321. The deadline to apply for SafeTrack to conduct a complete streets assessment in your community is tomorrow. However, if you're interested in this program and did not have an opportunity to apply, let me know and I can put you in touch with somebody at SafeTrack to discuss whether or not there's any remaining openings. Similarly, SafeTrack has the CPBST, or Community Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Training, that's also available to your agency or other agencies within your community. And the deadline to apply is Friday, the 24th. Okay. The Office of Traffic Safety also hosts a website called Go Safely California. And the website offers a multitude of educational materials and videos for use not only by our grantees, but any other stakeholders interested in reproducing this content for distribution within their communities. Many of the resources can be customized with your agency's name and logo. Furthermore, this website also has materials supporting and increasing awareness of safe system approach, as you can see some of the media content displayed here. So the Office of Traffic Safety grants fund non-infrastructure programming specifically to eliminate traffic fatalities and injuries. Programming such as education to reach members of the public or to reach city staff from other local agencies to increase collaboration and adoption of traffic safety plans. We also fund research using data sets such as, in addition to crash data, such as emergency department data, telematics and predictive crash data, as well as data collected locally from traffic collection cameras that we've funded. And in terms of emergency medical services and post-crash care, we fund extrication equipment for local fire agencies. The program areas for our grants include all those that you see listed here. We fund education, enforcement, and research grants. I imagine that most of us here on the call today are primarily interested in pedestrian and bicycle traffic safety, which I will go into greater detail in a later slide. But to let you know some of the other types of funding that we provide in the other areas that may also be of interest to your community. For alcohol impaired, you may recognize CHPs every 15 minutes and sober grad events. For distracted driving, we have another grant with CHP who in turn works with impact team drivers. The grant provides enhanced enforcement, public awareness campaign, educational distracted driving workshops, and impact team driver train the trainer courses. In the area of drug impairment, an example of one of the grants that we currently fund is one with Santa Cruz County Health Services Agency, where they are conducting an impaired driving prevention education program using strategies focused on education of youth and adult drivers, alcohol retailers, and the Latinx community to change social norms around drinking and driving. For motorcycle safety, we do have grants that fund on motorcycle skills training. And in the area of occupant protection, we primarily fund child passenger safety programs that in turn provide seat inspections, no-cost seat distributions, and child passenger safety classes to caregivers, parents, and professional transporters. So, bicycle and pedestrian safety programs. The programming listed on this slide reflects some of the more typical activities such as community bike rides, rodeos, and walking field trips. One program that I want to highlight today is the School Travel Fellowship, a program developed by San Mateo County Office of Education that provides technical assistance to teams comprised of students, school staff, and local public works or Department of Transportation to improve active transportation and traffic safety near schools using community-focused solutions. Many of the projects have resulted in temporary demonstrations. Since inception of the program, 3 projects have now secured funding for infrastructure design or implementation. Continuing with bike and ped safety programs, other types of grant funding we've offered includes education related to infrastructure changes. For example, we have grants where the grantee has developed education programs on the benefits of a roundabout and how to interact with a roundabout. Additionally, we have programs, local programs where the agency has developed educational and awareness campaigns of the benefits of daylighting. These are just a few examples of some of the types of grant funding we provide. In terms of allowable costs, we provide funding for personnel to provide programming either not currently offered by the agency or to expand programming to agree that would not be possible without grant funding. We fund contractual services if the agency doesn't have staff either qualified or available to conduct programming. They can enter into a subcontract for somebody else to do the work. We provide funding for travel, for training or industry conferences, and we provide funding for activity supplies such as pop-up tents, chalk, cones, small-scale traffic controls, loaner bikes, and other items to conduct a bike rodeo or any other type of bicycle or pedestrian safety activity. Okay. Some general grant information. Eligible applicants must be a government or public entity. Some examples of grantees that we currently have include county health departments, housing agencies, public works and DOTs, local public works and DOTs, county office of education, and parks and recs, and school districts. You'll notice that nonprofits are not eligible to apply directly for a grant. However, they can work with a host agency, which would be any of the eligible applicants that I just described, where the host agency would enter into a subcontract with the nonprofit. We do not publish a minimum or maximum grant amount. And sometimes, we're often asked for this information, and I understand it can be frustrating that we don't publish a formal minimum or maximum. But to give you some idea as to where our grants typically fall, our minimum this current year was as small as 25,000 and as large as 440,000. Okay, we do not require a local match. And the grant period is 12 months long, and it coincides with the federal fiscal year from October 1st through September 30th. So this is a snapshot of our funding cycle. And where we are right now is we're just approaching the deadline for the applications for the 2026 federal fiscal year. And I realize that's only 2 weeks away, but I have heard that our application tends to be easier and shorter than most. So I encourage anybody who wasn't previously aware of our grant program to request a GEMS login. GEMS is the database we use to house our applications. And take a look at the application. I'll go through it a little bit in the next few slides to give you some idea as to what's required. We announced tentative awards in July, and then from July through October or July through September, we work with the applicant to refine what will become a final grant. Okay, so the application elements include what you see here listed on the slide, from problem identification, strategies, objectives, budget. It's not that extensive in terms of a grant application, and our application is templated. So at least it is for bicycle and pedestrian traffic safety. It includes optional predefined objectives, or otherwise known as activities, and budget items to facilitate the application process. You can create custom defined objectives and budget items if the predefined choices don't satisfy your needs. When completing the application, we want to remind everybody to make sure that the target population that was identified in your problem identification is the same target population described in your strategy section, and the same target population that's receiving the educational activities. For example, if the data reflects a safety problem for pedestrians, we really don't want to see an application filled with bike rodeos. Information provided to describe the agency's qualifications should cover both fiscal qualifications as well as program qualifications. Okay, so the problem identification is the most important part of the application. This is the applicant's opportunity to demonstrate a need for grant funding. This is the most requiring section of the application and must be supported by data. The data provided must address the entire jurisdiction, but additional data can be provided to address specific locations or communities within the jurisdiction or hotspots. So we understand that it's conceivable that citywide or countywide crash data may not indicate that your jurisdiction has a problem, but we also understand that the money that you're likely to receive in one of our grants is unlikely to be enough money to deliver programming throughout the entire jurisdiction. And it's more likely the case that you'll be focusing on a specific area or a few specific areas. So given that that's the situation, we do encourage you to provide data specific to the same areas where you intend on delivering programming. Okay. Though the application requires crash data, your agency may also provide other data. In addition to the sources listed here, we encourage the applicant to use other local data, such as emergency department data, helmet usage data, or even feedback from community members, such as survey data or 311 reports. So how to apply? You can see on the screen, there's a URL, but if it's a long URL. If you just go to the OTS website and navigate to grants and grant application, it will take you to a page where you can request a user ID if you do not already have one, a login to the application database, which we refer to as GEMS. As I mentioned earlier, the application period closes in a mere 2 weeks. If you don't think it's feasible for your agency to submit an application by the end of this month, but you are interested in applying for an OTS grant, or even interested in learning a little bit more than what, maybe you have some questions that are not answered in this slide deck, send me your contact information and I will contact you to discuss the possibility of an out-of-cycle grant. Okay, and here's my information, my phone number and my email. And that's it. I'm all done.
Thanks so much, Nancy. You have a couple of questions in the Q&A, but I'd like to go ahead and move on to our next speaker since we're a little behind now. So our next speaker is Kevin Mariant from the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants Program. He's the manager of that grant program, and he's also with the Caltrans Management Branch. He started his career with Caltrans in 2007 and has worked with multiple grant programs over the years. First working with California Department of Housing and Community Development on a transit-oriented development program, then on the Public Transportation Modernization Improvement and Service Enhancement Account Program. He believes that Californians deserve a high-quality multimodal transportation system that provides a range of travel options for all Californians. Go ahead and share your screen, Kevin. Looks good, thank you.
I think we're all set. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar, and I have some slides today for the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants that are administered through Caltrans and the Division of Transportation Planning. So for an overview of the grant program, eligible planning projects must have a transportation nexus per Article 19, Sections 2 and 3 of the California Constitution. Planning projects are expected to directly benefit the multimodal transportation system. They're intended to strengthen the economy, promote equity, and protect the environment. And results of these grants should lead to the programming and implementation of transportation improvement projects. And here we have a listing of the program objectives, and they include safety, sustainability, preservation, accessibility, innovation, economy, health, and social equity. And then here is a list of program considerations, and they include the Caltrans Strategic Plan, the California Transportation Plan 2050, the various modal plans that support the CTP 2050, the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, the Title VI and Environmental Justice, Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, the California Climate Adaptation Strategy, and then the Master Plan for Aging. And these are plans that should be referenced in the applications, and also any grant applications or scope of work should sort of fit within the framework of these existing plans. Then we have a funding overview. So within the Sustainable Transportation Planning grants, we have multiple grant categories with different funding. So just a quick overview, there is the Sustainable Communities Competitive category. There is 17 million available annually, and these are state funded primarily through SB1. We have climate adaptation planning grants. This was funded by a one-time augmentation of 50 million. That was through SB 198. We've done two previous cycles for this grant category, and of the 50 million, we have 3.7 million remaining for this upcoming cycle. And then finally, we have strategic partnerships, and there is 4.5 million available. And this grant category is federally funded through the Federal Highway Administration along with the Federal Transit Administration. And then I'll get into some specifics for each of those categories. So the purpose of the Sustainable Communities grants are to fund local and regional multimodal transportation and land use planning projects that further the region's regional transportation plan and sustainable community strategy or alternative planning strategy, contribute to the state's GHG reduction targets, address the needs of under-resourced communities, and assist in achieving the Caltrans mission and grant program objectives. One thing to highlight here, we have a program goal for Sustainable Communities that 50% of the competitive grants benefit under-resourced communities. And those are defined in our grant application guide, Appendix A. We have various metrics to determine under-resourced communities. But we typically fund anywhere from like 80 to 90% that meet this goal. So we're a much higher than the 50% that's required. And then we have eligibility and funding details. So for Sustainable Communities, eligible primary applicants include metropolitan planning organizations, along with a sub-applicant, regional transportation planning agencies, transit agencies, cities and counties, Native American tribal governments, and then other public transportation planning entities. And then eligible sub-applicants include that list of primary applicants, along with universities and community colleges, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and other public entities. And then finally, for the funding, the competitive budget is 17 million. There is a 3 million set aside for technical projects. And then we have this funding cycle up to $2 million set aside for Native American tribal governments. The minimum grant request is 50,000 for under-resourced communities and tribes, and then 100,000 for all other agencies, with a grant maximum request of 700,000. And there is an 11.47% minimum local match requirement. And there is no match requirement for Native American tribal governments. The purpose for the climate adaptation planning grants is to fund local and regional identification of transportation-related climate vulnerabilities through the development of climate adaptation plans, as well as project-level climate adaptation planning to identify adaptation projects and strategies for transportation infrastructure. And then similar to sustainable communities, we have a goal of 50% of the grants benefiting under-resourced communities. Again, eligibility and funding for climate adaptation planning. So the primary eligible primary applicants include MPOs, RTPAs, transit agencies, cities and counties, Native American tribal governments, a joint exercise of powers authorities, and local transportation authorities. And then a listing of eligible sub-applicants include the primary applicants, along with universities and community colleges, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and other public entities. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 3.7 million available for this funding cycle, left from the previous two cycles, which was a total of 50 million one-time allocation for this program. And then we have up to 1 million set aside available for Native American tribal governments, with a grant minimum request of 100,000 and a grant maximum request of 1 million for a single applicant, and up to 1.5 million will be considered for partnership applications. And there is a local match requirement of 11.47%. That's the minimum match requirement. And then again, no match requirement for Native American tribal governments. And the purpose of the strategic partnerships grants is to fund transportation planning studies in partnership with Caltrans that address the regional, interregional, and statewide needs of the state highway system and assist in achieving the Caltrans mission and grant program objectives. There is a subcategory that funds transit-focused planning projects that address multimodal transportation deficiencies. And then we have eligibility and funding information for strategic partnerships. So the primary applicants include MPOs and RTPAs. And then for this funding cycle, we also expanded eligibility for the strategic partnerships transit category, which is funded by FTA 5304, to allow transit agencies to apply to those grants. And the eligible list of sub-applicants include the primary applicants along with transit agencies for the FHWA portion, cities and counties, universities and community colleges, Native American tribal governments, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and other public entities. And then these grants are federally funded. The details, strategic partnerships category is funded by FHWA SPNR Part 1. That has a budget of 1.5 million with a grant minimum request of 100,000 and a grant maximum request of 500,000. And the match requirement for the FHWA funds is 20%. Then we have a strategic partnerships transit category, which is federally funded by FTA Section 5304. For that, we have a budget of $3 million with a grant minimum request of 75,000 for our TPAs and transit agencies, and 100,000 for MPOs, with a grant maximum request of 500,000. And then the local match requirement for the FTA Section 5304 funds is 11.47%. I just wanted to give an outline for the 25-26 grant cycle schedule. On October 24th of last year, we released the 25-26 grant application guide and call for applications. The application period is open through January 22nd at 5 p.m. That's next Wednesday. And then the winter and spring of this year, we will be doing application evaluations and getting management approvals for grant recommendations. Looking to award our grants, announce the grant awards in summer of 2025, most likely in June. And then fast forward to June of 2028, and that's when the 25-26 grants must be completed, and then the grant funds expire. And so just wanted to highlight, with the application deadline being next week, there's most likely not, if you haven't started an application already, there's a good chance that you won't be able to put together a quality application that would be competitive within 4 to 5 days. So we do have some additional information on this next page. At the bottom here, we have a link to subscribe to the Transportation Planning Grants email list. So if you want to get information for any future grant cycles, if you subscribe there, we send out regular emails for any updates, workshops, releasing of the application guide, etc. So that's a good place to start to make sure that you're stay in contact with us and get all the latest information. Also, I have here information on the grant application guide. It's available on our website, which the link is on the next page. And then we also have additional application resources and templates available on the website. On the grant application cover, there is a link there to the Smartsheet form where we have our application submittal portal. And then along with the link here on this page, we are taking applications through Smartsheets through that link there. And then here is the URL to the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants website. I have my contact information there. And then I also sent out, along with the slides to this presentation, a copy of our grant application guide. So that should be sent out by Marianne after this webinar.
Thanks so much, Kevin. We do have a couple of questions, and I'll let you answer them in the Q&A box. Sure. Just so everyone knows, we'll go ahead just to keep everything on time and have plenty of time for questions. We're going to address the questions orally or read them aloud and have the speakers respond to the questions once everyone has presented. So thanks so much, Kevin. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Our next speaker is Ella Manischel. She's with the Strategic Growth Council as an associate planner with the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program at the California Strategic Growth Council. Ella works to administer her program in coordination with partner agencies such as the Department of Housing and Community Development and the California Air Resources Board. Her work includes developing program guidelines, facilitating community outreach and technical assistance, and scoring program applications. Ella, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and let you share your slides. And also, just for the audience, please type your questions in the Q&A. And keep in mind all the resources that Kevin mentioned, as well as all the resources that are mentioned during the presentation, will be sent out in a separate document as well as in the slides. So thank you. Go ahead, Ella.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully everyone can see my slides here.
Yes, they look good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Marianne. Good morning, everyone. I am here today to provide an overview of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program, often referred to as AHSC or ASIC. This is a coordinated effort between the California Strategic Growth Council, which is my organization, as well as the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and the California Air Resources Board. So the vision of AHSC is to fund infill projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled through sustainable land use, housing, and transportation practices. You can see in the graphic here, an example of what we're trying to create, really these integrated communities where we have affordable housing, easily connected to local amenities through active transportation and public transit, things like this. This is, not your typical active transportation program. We fund projects that integrate both housing and transportation, but active transportation can be a big portion of these projects, and I'll get into that more in a moment. So AHSC, at its core is really a greenhouse gas reduction program. So we get our funding through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. We're guaranteed 20% of the auction proceeds from the GGRF every year through 2030. So you can expect further rounds of our program through 2030. The funding availability per round does vary depending on those the funds in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund every year. But our last two rounds, round 7 and 8, had 750 million available. And then we're anticipating that for round 9, this upcoming round, that we'll have about 775 million available. This number will be finalized and published in our Notice of Funding Availability, which is anticipated to release about a month after our final guidelines are adopted by Council. And then our program does have a minimum and maximum award amount. So our minimum is 10 million, although that is, we're proposing a lowered minimum for tribal applicants to 1 million, but for most projects it will be a minimum of 10 million. And then our maximum is 50 million, and within that $50 million cap, we have a $35 million cap for housing components, and then a $15 million cap for transportation components. So as I mentioned, AHSC funds both housing and transportation components. On the left here, you can see those housing components. So we have affordable housing developments and then housing related infrastructure. We fund both rental and homeownership projects, and then some examples of housing related infrastructure are infrastructure improvements as required as condition of approval, factory built housing components, and on-site energy storage. And then the part where I'm anticipating a lot of you here today will come in on a project is our STI, or Sustainable Transportation Infrastructure component. So this is our transportation piece, and it covers a wide variety of transportation types. It can be active transportation like bikeways, sidewalks, crosswalks, things like that, or it could be public transit or amenities related to those public transit features. And then we also fund program elements for up to 3 years as part of projects, and that can also have an active transportation component. We often see active transportation programs like bicycle education programs. I think we had a program to fund bicycle maintenance and repair, things like that. And then we also often see things outside of active transportation like resident services, air pollution reduction programs. These are just a few examples. And then I did just want to take a moment to highlight some of our eligible active transportation elements. This is by no means an exhaustive list. These are just some examples of the ways that active transportation can play into an AHSC project. As I mentioned, a project will never just be active transportation or even just transportation alone. Every project must have a housing and a transportation component. So what this would probably look like for most of you, if your transportation agency is to partner with a developer who would handle the housing components of the project, and then you would handle the transportation and or program elements, depending on what you're wanting to do. So some examples are new or improved bikeways or walkways, repaving and road reconstruction, where those improved walkways and bikeways are installed, streetscape improvements like lighting, signage, wayfinding markers, etc. Street crossing enhancements, bike sharing infrastructure and fleet, street furniture, publicly accessible bike parking or repair kiosks, and then bicycle carrying devices on public transit. Like I said, not exhaustive. There are more examples in our guidelines, and even that isn't exhaustive. If you have, other questions about other eligible costs, you're welcome to shoot us an email. And then I wanted to go over the basic requirements that we have for applying to our program. So we call this project threshold. This is not the competitive portion of our program. This is just the basic eligibility requirements that every applicant needs to meet in order to qualify for our program. So this is not a full list. There's much more detail in our guidelines. So I recommend going there if you have a project in mind or are really interested in applying. But these are some highlights. So we require that projects demonstrate site control, both on housing and transportation components when necessary. We require that the developer show experience of similar scope and size. We require that there be no active or pending litigation on the project, that the project show financial feasibility through committed funding, that they provide evidence of discretionary land use approval, that the projects be all electric design, including the transportation components, that internet service be provided to each restricted unit, that there be existing qualifying transit or high quality transit within a half-mile of the housing development. And there are definitions of those two types of transit in our guidelines. We require that the project supports regional sustainable community strategy implementation. And then, like I said, we require that every project have both a housing and a transportation component. So now I will go into the way that we score and award projects here at AHSC. So it is a competitive program, and we score projects on a 100-point scale. Although no project is really expected to get full points. I don't know that there ever has been one. But we have 3 scoring categories. We have our GHG reduction scoring, which is worth 30 points. And that's where applicants will use our GHG calculator to quantify the GHG reductions that are anticipated from their project implementation. We have our quantitative policy scoring section, which is our biggest scoring category at 50 points. And this covers a wide variety of topics that we as an agency are incentivizing through the HSC program. So things like the housing location efficiency, what other amenities is the housing close to, anti-displacement activities. We give points for being priority populations, serving priority populations through the project. So there's a wide variety of topics. Again, recommend going to the guidelines for more information. And then we have our narrative-based policy scoring section. which is applicants' opportunity to really provide us with more context in a narrative-based format, to tell us about what work has gone into the project thus far, why it's important to the community, things like that. And that's worth 20 points. And then we award projects based on those highest scores, and then also in alignment with several goals that are set by our statute and our council. So on the left here, we have our 3 project area types. So transit-oriented developments, integrated connectivity projects, and rural innovation project areas. So every application will apply under one of these project area types, and then this is how we distribute funding between those 3 categories. So we designate 35% to transit-oriented developments, 35% to integrated connectivity projects, and 10% to rural innovation project areas. And then on the right here, we have some other goals that we are required to meet each round, including designating at least 50% of our funding each round to disadvantaged communities, as identified by Cal and ViroScreen, at least 50% of our funding to housing components. We are required to award at least 1 tribal project each round, although we are proposing a modification to this goal for round 9 to be a funding goal. So it would be at least 50 million in tribal funding instead of 1 tribal project. And then at least 1 project in each of the 8 geographic areas, which I'll go over in the next slide. But I did also want to mention that none of these set-asides are mutually exclusive. So 1 project can serve to meet multiple goals. For example, you might have a transit-oriented development project that is in a disadvantaged community, and that project would serve to meet both of those goals. So here are our geographic areas. This is how we've divided the state for the purpose of meeting that geographic goal. It is divided up by county. So you can take a moment here to find your county and what geographic area it aligns with. We've got Central Coast, Coastal Southern California, Inland Southern California, North State and Sierras, Sacramento area, San Diego area, San Francisco Bay area, and the San Joaquin Valley. And like I said, we are required to award at least 1 project in each of these geographic areas each round. And then this is our timeline for round 9. So we are currently in the process of integrating feedback from our public comment period into our final guidelines. And we expect to finalize those and release them in mid-February. And then council should adopt those round 9 final guidelines in late February at their council meeting. Excuse me. We expect to release our notice of funding availability and our application workbook in March of this year, which would make applications due in May. And then you can expect council to adopt the round 9 awards in December of this year. And that's really it. I mean, there's a lot more information on in our guidelines. I really recommend if if you want more information on the program, if you have a project in mind, that you go to our website, which is the link is here, and I can put it in the chat as well. But we have our past and current program guidelines on there. We have recordings of other workshops. We have fact sheets and examples of awarded projects. I think that's probably the best resource for most of you. We also have our request for technical assistance on our website. The state does provide no-cost technical assistance to qualifying projects. So you're welcome to go there for more information on technical assistance. And then if you have additional questions that aren't answered today, you're welcome to shoot us an email. Our email is ahsc@sgc.ca.gov. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ella. On your previous slide, you showed a schedule, and I know a question came in, and I think it applies to all the speakers. And we can address it after Mike speaks, but the question was basically, since many of these applications are due fairly soon, do all your applications generally follow the same schedule. And I know OTS does, but we'll answer that once we talk to Mike, or we hear from Mike. Our next speaker is Mike Shami. He is a discretionary grant manager with the Federal Highway Administration at California Division. Mike manages the Safe Streets and Roads for All planning and demonstration grants, the Advanced Transportation and Congestion Management Technologies Deployment grants, and low carbon transportation materials grants, as well as other grants. Mike coordinates grant agreements, manages document submittal and amendments, provides technical assistance, and manages closeout procedure. Mike has over 2 years experience with the FHWA and over 31 experience with Caltrans, retiring as a senior transportation engineer. Welcome, Mike, and you can go ahead and share your slides. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm gonna go ahead and share my slides. All right, so. Okay, can everyone see my slides or anyone can?
Yes, they look good.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll make this quick. I know you might be behind time, but it's few slides that has a lot of references. The first one is my information. Please email me after this presentation if you have questions on SS4A grants. Again, I am doing only the planning and demonstration grants. We do have implementation grants, but unfortunately my counterpart, he could not make it. So I'm gonna quickly go over those grants and what they are and how you can apply. And so okay. So there's a lot of wordings here. I'm not gonna read all of them, but as you see, it's part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it's basically, it's a $5 billion program over 5 years. We are still, awarding projects for different local agencies. And I just want to make sure everyone understands this is direct funding to local agencies and tribes. So the state DOT doesn't get involved in this program. It's basically you are the direct recipient for these funds. I do manage the program as far as from the kickoff meeting webinar till any changes till the closeout and invoicing and other stuff, reporting. So because we do have some requirements. And so again, almost 2 billion is still available. And so what it's about is about safety. And it's basically, as you see, we want to reduce injuries and hopefully eliminate fatalities. We have a target here for that, and we are trying to assist or help the local agencies, get funds so they can develop some safety action plans, or they can supplement their safety plan that's been on the shelves for many years to kind of keep up with technologies, because there are certain things we can do to reduce serious injuries and also eliminate fatalities on our roadway system. So we have provided $2.9 billion to over 1,600 communities in all 50 states. So it is not only California, but California gets a big chunk of the money. So California has received over $470 million so far, and there are 180 grants, planning and demonstration grants, and over $140 million, and 25 over implementation grants over $327 million in California. So the difference between the two, as you see, we have only 25 implementation grants totaling $327 million, because these are basically design and construction projects. This is a very competitive program to get selected for implementation grant. Less competitive is the planning and demonstration grants, and I will briefly explain what's the meaning of demonstration grants, because some of you might say, okay, well, not only planning, but you could do some pilot activities with temporary measures that would prove to be safety worthy, you know, and it could be part of your, part of your TIP or FTIP with your MPO or RTPA. So the next opportunity is for fiscal year 2025. The notice of funding opportunity, the NOFO, is expected to be released before the end of March 2025. And I put for you a lot of links. Most of my slides are links after this, which I'll probably hover over a few of them with the limited time we have. So basically, this one, if you click on it, and hopefully you can be able to click on you should be able to click on the PDF copy. So this tells you how to apply, and also subscribe to email updates. So if you have not had a safety action plan with us, and you are new, you can apply for this, and there is here we have eligibility and requirements, so many resources here, so you can use this one to apply. The most important link is this one. So basically this will take you to different links and plenty of resources. So we could spend hours going over this, but if you have questions on this and how to navigate or where to go, and again, it's all information for you. We do have a list of awarded projects, eligibility and requirements, how to apply. So everything is spelled out here, and we have webinars. So this is available to all of you. So there are some key facts about 2024, which I think I copied maybe some of the information in my first slide. A word announcement. And again, this one here is saying, as I said, it's going to be the end of March 2025, the notice of funding opportunity. So this is a great, reference you could use. I want to stay here a little bit because I want to kind of give you an example of what are demonstration activities. So basically, you could apply for planning and demonstration, which means you could develop a safety action plan, and at the same time, based on the findings of this plan, you want to demonstrate or pilot some temporary measures. As you see, those are example of temporary measures that you could use to improve safety on your roads, basically to reduce serious injury and eliminate fatalities. And if you choose that route, then we do a phased agreement, which means we will obligate funds for your planning phase. And then once if you have any NEPA, or if you're gonna touch the environment, most of these are categorical exemptions, so probably it's going to be a quick check, and even we can fund this part. And then once you clear the environmental, then we can obligate the next two phases, which is maybe quick design and also demonstration activities. Most of these demonstration activities are temporary in nature. As you see, even you can do like roundabout, temporary roundabout, as you see in the first picture. And then if it works, then this will validate, maybe a TIP or FTIP project that you will do with your MPO or RTPA to get a permanent roundabout. So this is a great opportunity to demonstrate that these features work, and then also be part of the, to apply for, permanent projects. So I'm going to move on because I know my time is limited here. So, take your time, look at this page. I did put some information, application aids. So feel free to go over them, if you're going to apply. And if you have questions, and again, do not hesitate to contact me. So there is a checklist, guidance, and instructions. I put all these links for you. So, you know, again, if you're gonna apply for implementation grant, which I said they're very competitive, then there is a checklist here, planning and demonstration grant checklist. There are 8, you know, kind of like tools for you, calculating average annual fatality rate, cost and contracting fact sheet. So a lot of information. And you do need to, when you apply, you have to submit certain forms. So, but again, your starting point, like I said, would be that main page that I showed you before that will guide you and take you to a lot of resources. So basically, I mean, this is a quick snapshot at the SS4A Safe Street for All. And again, the money is there. We have funded a lot of, you know, safety action plan and even supplemental action plan. If you had like I said, if you have a safety plan that's been sitting on the shelf for a while, then you can apply for supplemental plan and even demonstration activities. And it is much less competitive than implementation grant. And again, we have a lot of local agencies, cities, counties that have applied, and they got, you know, they got funded. And of course, once you will be notified that, you know, you were selected, then we have to go through a grant agreement, which I will walk you through it in the kickoff webinar. And then we'll go from there. So the money is there, and you know, again, be on the you know, make sure you put to be notified and keep that date in mind towards the end of March, where the NOFO will be posted. So basically, this is all I have. I've probably taken more time than I needed, but there are any questions, I'm gonna leave shortly after the meeting, so I will be more than happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, one question has arisen. Multiple webinars I've attended regarding the Safe Streets and Roads for All do you have a sense if the funding will change with the new presidential administration?
Well, again, that's a very good question. The quick answer is we don't know, but being on the optimistic side, you know, this is a safety. These are infrastructure, and you know, we're looking at this is, you know, this is kind of like we're not beautifying roads here. We're doing some serious safety planning and studies. So I'm optimistic that we will keep going, but you know, it is what it is. Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have some questions that have come through, and I think one came through for you, Kevin, regarding your grants. The question was, oh, now I can't find it. Sorry. Maybe you already answered it about SB1. Let's see here. And then Alicia and I will read through there's just a couple of questions that have yet to be answered. Let's see.
Marianne, the question reads, do SB1 grant pay for mobility element updates?
Yeah, I typed in the chat. We don't allow, or I guess general plan updates aren't eligible, but if it was a mobility element or a transportation element that has a transportation nexus, those would be eligible.
And then back to you, Mike. When is the last funding opportunity for the SS4A program?
As I stated, it's end of March of this year, but if it's it says it's the 2022 to 2026 program, so there could be another round in 2026. But keep eye for this end of March, and like I said, hopefully everything will move on even with the new administration, and to get the funds it is not that difficult. So I encourage anyone who has not applied, please apply.
And then just to add on to Mike's mention of the demonstration projects, we have a very good quick build demonstration webinar posted on the ATRC.
Yeah, I just want to add, just make sure those demonstration activities qualify. You know, I had an agency that wanted to do slurry seal or seal cracks. That does not qualify. This is more like maintenance. Yeah, it does prevent, you know, pavement deterioration and maybe could lead to safer, but that's not, unfortunately, that's not under demonstration activities. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And then Anna has her hand raised. Can we unmute her?
Now you've been unmuted, you can speak.
I actually raised it by mistake. Sorry, my questions got answered.
Oh, okay. All right, great. And then I thought we had another person raise their hand. Are you still there? Did you like to ask your question?
I don't see anybody else with their hand raised.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. I'm looking through the questions just to see. Oh, the question that I mentioned before Mike spoke was, and I'll let each of you repeat. I know some of you listed it on your slides, but Nancy, what are the funding deadline for your grant? And I know it's consistent.
Okay. So the deadline for the 2026 federal fiscal year grant cycle is January 31st, just in a couple weeks from now. However, it's my understanding if there's anybody who's close to ready but just can't make that deadline, they should contact me and see whether or not there's an opportunity for an out of cycle opportunity.
Thank you. And Nancy, yours are consistent year to year to year.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. And then Kevin, is yours consistent year to year? If people don't have time this year, it's going to be pretty much the same deadlines you posted on your slides today for 2028. Say they're ready in 2028. It would still be due in January.
There's some slight variation, but yeah, typically it's in the same, December, January. It's generally around the same time, but there's some fluctuation.
Great. And Ella, how about you?
So I put it in the chat, but we moving forward will be on a 14-month schedule for HSC, and then we have guaranteed funding through 2030. So you can expect that those rounds will continue at least through then. After that is to be determined.
Okay. And then Mike, I think this is the last year of SS4A, correct? This round coming up?
I think so, but let me double check. But again, I encourage everyone to apply. Look for the March, of this year. Yeah, I will double check and post in the chat. Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. And Fred Minagar, that answer is coming to you soon. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in right now. I did want to mention a couple of opportunities one for training and another grant opportunity that has come through soon. Thank you, Alicia. Oh, yes. And we have a question from Allie, our Caltrans. Go ahead, Allie. Oh, unmute.
All right. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, I
Yes.
was muted. It wasn't a question. I just saw we had another. It wasn't a question from me, but saw we had a question in the chat for Kevin. So just wanted to address that before moving on. And the question was, given that the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program is due in 5 days, is there any flexibility in the deadline like there is for the OTS grants?
No, we don't have any flexibility for the deadline for the 25-26 cycle. But we do the yearly cycle, so we would just suggest that they get their grant project in order, and they can be ready to submit for the next funding cycle for 26-27.
Great, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, and like I think I posted, it's good to sign up to our email list. That way you can get any correspondence coming out of headquarters for timing of any future grant cycles. We do a lot of workshops at headquarters and also at the district level for more focused workshops. So it's good to stay in touch with us via that email list.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation, Kevin. I was going to suggest the same for everyone on here, because that's, how we at the ATRC have been able to find more information about your grant programs. And so we do have an Excel sheet already that lists a variety of grants and links to their web pages. So we'll include that in the resource document that's sent out to you all after this webinar.
And
The
then
link to the email list is in the chat too.
And then also regarding signing up for a regular listserv from the Active Transportation Resource Center, we just released a newsletter or announcements. It just depends on the month yesterday. So please do, we'll put it in the chat as how to sign up for our ATRC list. And speaking of all the things that have been listed today and all the questions that have been answered online. Thank you very much, speakers, and any other links to any relevant websites. All of that will be in a resource document. It looks like our resource document is going to be quite large, and someone also asked for if we could embed the links in the slides. So that shouldn't be a problem, and all that will be posted to the ATRC. All right, I did want to share, as I mentioned, I see, do we have any new questions?
Marianne, this is Mike. I just added in the chat, but I guess it only goes to host and panelists. There will be another round in 2026. There is no set date yet, but like I said, I recommend whoever did not apply before, please apply this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to share with you a couple of, let's see, let's get this going here. Sorry about that. Let's do this. Okay, so we had our Q&A. I did want to share that the National Safety Council has extended the deadline for the Road to Zero application grants, and that they are now due at the end of the month, which again doesn't give you a whole lot of time. And then also I wanted to announce a training opportunity. We talked about many grants, and this training might be helpful. It's a 3.5-hour training, and it's on March 6th on navigating discretionary grant programs. And it's strongly recommended that people attend, and we'll place these links in the resource document as well as to how to register for that. Alicia and I, we provide technical assistance support to the non-infrastructure, that is non-construction projects for California. We divide the state up basically by north and south. So there we are. And And then finally, are there any other questions before we log off? And again, everything will be posted on our website soon. By next week, we should have everything gathered, put together for you. Thank you.